Somebody asked me this morning, how are you doing? And I said, I'm on top of the world. Yesterday I was in Corpus Christi at the cathedral for the ordination of 12 men to the permanent diaconate. And so that made me think back to mine. And so that's the reason I'm up here today, because usually I don't give the homily on the first Sunday of the month, but I asked Father if I could do so today, because 12 years ago today, November the 8th, 2008, around this time in the morning, I was ordained as a permanent deacon in the Diocese of Corpus Christi. And so I'm very happy to celebrate my anniversary. Thank you. I remember the anticipation that morning. I had invited family and friends and put them all up at the La Quinta in Corpus, where we also stayed, and I remember the Mass very clearly. One of the most memorable moments for me was when Bishop Edmund Carmody, the Bishop of Corpus Christi at the time, took the book of the Gospels, just like this one, and he put it in my hands after I was ordained and said, "Receive the book of Gospels, whose herald you have become." Imagine, now I'm a herald of the Gospels, all right? Believe what you read, teach what you believe, and practice what you teach. In my 12 blessed years as a deacon, I have tried very hard to fulfill that charge, because if I don't, then I fall short of my responsibilities, and I may end up like those virgins knocking on the door because I had not prepared properly. In all the materials I looked at for preparing for this homily, it wasn't until I got to the very last paragraph of the things that I was reading that I found something that resonated with me, and it talked about time management. In these crazy days of COVID, time management has become a profound issue. In the early days of COVID, we were mostly staying at home, and we found new ways to keep ourselves busy, or perhaps we rediscovered some of the old ways. Perhaps we caught up with some of the things we had been putting off. I'm going to do that one day, and now the day is here. Perhaps we tried to learn something new, like to sew, to knit, paint, art, learn to play a musical instrument, and learn a new language. The possibilities are endless. But now, as life moves on in a different way, we all try to manage our time in a good way. I will share with you that my wife and I have a 4th grader and a 6th grader at home. The majority of our day each day is spent monitoring the girls, assisting them with their assignments, preparing lunch for them, keeping them motivated. And it's not unusual for us to be working until 9 o'clock in the evening with one or the other doing their homework. Time is such a valuable commodity. And I will tell you, it's tempting to send them back to school for face-to-face schooling, but we aren't ready to send them back until we're satisfied with the safety of their health when they do go back. So what would happen if my wife and I said, just let them do what they do. If they get it done, they get it done, and we'll be happy with that. Well, then what would happen? They would fail, and that would not be acceptable. So it is worth our time to help our girls all day, every day, and it is worth our time to be vigilant. Now let's look at the 10 virgins in today's gospel. In the culture of the time, after a period of betrothal, the bride remained in her father's house. And so it could be 6 months, a year, 2 years that she stayed there. And then one day the time would come for the groom to go to her house and bring her home for the wedding. The 10 virgins and their lamps were to lead the wedding procession into the home when the wedding party arrived. For some unknown reason, this groom was delayed in his arrival. And the foolish virgins asked for oil when they heard that he was coming, but they were denied. The wise virgins were probably thinking, well, what if he's delayed again? We're going to still need some more of this oil. The wise virgins wanted to be sure that they would be able to fulfill their commitment when the groom arrived. So what does all of this have to do with you and me? Well, the Gospels for the past few weeks, as Father pointed out, and as will come the remaining weeks, have provided us with oil for our lamps. 2 weeks ago, we heard that we must love God with our whole heart, mind, soul, and strength, and we should love our neighbors as ourselves. Last week, we were told we should be poor in spirit, to thirst for righteousness, to endure persecution for the sake of the kingdom, and many other things. Well, what if we fall short of those things? What if we were like the foolish virgins and say, who said, I'm sure, that they had extra time to grab some oil when they were preparing to go, but they were short-sighted and they were lazy, and they said, I'll be all right. But then comes the moment of truth. The groom arrives and they're not there to join the wedding feast. One day, our moment of truth will also arrive. It will be our day to be called before the judgment seat. Imagine standing before Jesus, and he looks you in the eye, and he asks you, did you love me with your whole heart, your whole mind, and your whole soul? Each of us has to ask ourselves, do I truly love God above all things? How would I answer that question when I stand before Jesus? Is my lamp burning brightly before him, burning brightly with the love that I have for my God? Or is it just a small flicker of light that is barely visible? Do I try to live out the Beatitudes? Or do I just think about them once a year when they come around in the readings? Not sure what the Beatitudes are? Go back to last Sunday's gospel. Print it out. Tape it up to a mirror that you look at frequently. Tape it to the dashboard of your car. Put it in your workplace where you have it, you can see it every day. If you're in school, put it on one of your notebooks. If you read the Beatitudes enough, then you will come to believe in it deeply in your heart. And if you believe in it deeply in your heart, then you can share and teach it to others around you. Your most profound teaching will come from how you live out your life. My brothers and sisters, none of us know when we will be called before Jesus for our particular judgment. But two things are certain. One, it is going to happen. Two, we don't know when it will happen. But we know one more thing for sure. We must be prepared every moment. Remember, God loves us all. He gives us an abundance of help to reach the heavenly kingdom, and we all need to do what we can to be sure that the doors are open for our reception into the heavenly kingdom, where we will share profound joy and love that only God can give. If you think about it, now is the time of betrothal. The world awaits the arrival of the bridegroom, Jesus. When he arrives, he will take us, his bride, the church, to the heavenly kingdom, so that we can all rejoice in the joys of the heavenly wedding feast. And so, my brothers and sisters, as we continue to wait for our entry into the heavenly kingdom, let us resolve to become more holy each day, so that we can all be ready when we meet Jesus face to face. Our Lady of Wisdom, Saint Joseph,
It's a beautiful homily, and I'm really grateful for Deacon Cris to preach on his ordination day, and I didn't know I was going to use him as a prop, though. Today is also, it feels like fall. I was watching him give his homily, and I can see sort of leaves falling from throughout the window in the back. I'm like, it's finally the fall. It feels like the fall. That also means that CSA has arrived, Catholic Services Appeal. This is something for the Diocese of Austin that helps to provide for the entire diocese, and the bishop asks us to share and to preach about this on Sundays. I also wanted to have an opportunity to preach on the gospel, so Deacon gave a homily. But I want to share with you about the CSA today. But like I do every year, I don't want to do that in a way that just talks about asking you to give to that cause. Rather, I want to put it in a bigger context of being a disciple of Jesus Christ. And so I think it appropriate that we talk a little bit about that, and then I'll tell you what the CSA is all about. As I'm doing that, however, I would like those at the end of the pews to pass these around to those around you, so you have them in hand. You can be looking at them, and this is materials for the CSA, okay, which CSA stands for Catholic Service Appeal, okay. This page right here that you are receiving This page is information about what the money goes to. Like why do we need to give to this? What does it help support? Well, it helps support deacons, it helps support priest formation, it helps support retired clergy, Catholic education, life, charity and justice, spirituality and worship, pastoral ministries, things that the diocese does that individual parishes can't really fully do on their own. And then the second piece right here is the actual commitment card. You'd fill out your information, what your gift would be, and all of that. I want you to have that in your hand. Lastly, there is a page, and this is what I'm going to mostly talk about because I like context. You know me well enough to know it. Is this handout that says Vision for Giving at Our Lady of Wisdom. And this is the context that I want to give you. And so this is what I'm going to talk about now. And everything has to take place within the context of being a disciple of Jesus Christ, not just an admirer of Him, but a follower of Him. This is what we preach on Sunday after Sunday after Sunday, is that as a response to the love of God, God who gives us everything, we want to give our whole selves to God. And this, of course, in emptying ourselves and receiving that gift of God, is how we are prepared. We have the oil in our lamp, so to speak, that we're ready for the Lord's coming, is that we have followed the Lord and loved Him with our whole heart and our neighbor as ourselves. So a disciple is this follower of Jesus Christ, someone who has encountered the Lord, discovered His love, and experiences the relationship with Him as a lived reality, not just a Sunday Mass thing, but that we encounter Jesus in our life day by day, that we're looking for Him in the various moments that are taking place, and we're responding to His love in our ordinary lives. The disciple's relationship with Christ informs his identity, who he or she is, directs his purpose in life, their action or their mission, and manifests his or her unique calling to holiness. Every one of us is called to be holy. And so we respond in the identity and the gift of love of God then by what we do, how we live our lives out in the day by day. And thus, the giving of a disciple is different from simply giving to a charitable cause. Discipleship giving is motivated by relationship and identity. It is an expression of my gift of self in loving response to God, who has first loved me, who has given me all that I have. Discipleship giving, then, is intentional. It's not accidental. It's not just the leftovers, so to speak, that I give to God. Rather, it's the first fruits of my life that I give to God. And I'm not just talking about money there, but money certainly has to be a part of it. I plan to give with consideration for the mission that God has given me. Every one of us has a share in the mission of Jesus Christ, to go and make disciples, to teach what He has taught. For many of us in our families, that's our spouses and our children. Others are given a various share in the ministry in different activities or causes that we might be involved with. And so discipleship giving is response to relationship with God, consideration for the mission, and it is also sacrificial, that we enter into the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. I'm growing as a disciple as much as what I allow the cross to form and stretch every aspect of my life for the greater good and the greater love of God. This is the foundation for everything we do as Catholics. So when we get to something like tithing and the financial resources, it's all within that context and that picture. So I want to describe to you what tithing is. Tithing is the goal, so not everyone's quite there yet, but it's the goal for mature intentional discipleship, to give from the first fruits as a response to that love of God for consideration of the mission of Jesus Christ. The tithe comes from the Anglo-Saxon word teotha. It means a tenth, to give 10% off the top of my collected income. We acknowledge that what we receive comes from God. And when we tithe, we make an act of trust and faith. It's an expression, an exercise in faith that God will provide for us and will bestow blessings upon us that transcend material and financial resources. God is never outdone in generosity. A helpful formula that we promote is 5% to your parish, 4% to charities of choice, social ministry collections or parish capital campaigns, and then 1% to the diocesan gift, which is what we're talking about today, CSA. So what we're talking about is actually the smallest part of what is meant to be our yearly tithe to the Lord. But it is an important part, 1% of our total giving to the Lord. Other places to research what the church teaches about tithing can be found in Canon Law number 222, which if you Google that, it'll come right up. And section 2043 of the Catechism, that's paragraph 2043, more information there. It's worth researching. And I wouldn't be a good father to you if I didn't share it with you, because it's an important part of the life of the disciple to be a sacrificial giver. And I don't say that out of, you do it and I won't. I do this. I tithe, I give as a priest even from my salary. And I give that to the church, I give it to support missionaries, I give it to CSA every year as well. So I'm also a giver in this way. And there's also another form of giving that isn't your tithing, it's giving from abundance. So some of us are gifted with abundance in our resources, that God has given abundance of something to us. And so the Christian disciple who is blessed with more discerns through prayer and relationship with the Lord how he or she may use such gifts to further God's glory and the mission entrusted to them. This is what we call philanthropy. It's the giving from abundance. An example of giving from abundance is Zacchaeus, the tax collector, who, as in response to the relationship with Jesus, gives over half of his wealth. That's Luke 19, if you want to go and read that gospel passage. So if I am blessed with surplus wealth, how is God calling me to use it to benefit the church and the world? Now, we don't want to neglect college students, because you're probably not surplus givers. You're not worried about philanthropy. You are often poor, though not always. I knew one student out in college who actually had stock in Google. I was very impressed, right? It says, the giving of a college student. So what about the college student that may not have a dependable income, let alone surplus wealth to give from? Again, tithing and giving to the Lord is not something just for when you have a salary, just for when you eventually have a job, but rather it's something that we begin now, and we have to, as a response to Jesus, consider what we are to give. And a good scripture example for this is the gospel story of the widow's mite, and that's Luke 21. Jesus commends the woman who gives sacrificially, even in her poverty, and he weighs her gift more than the larger gifts that are given from abundance. So the Lord is not asking for equal value in gifts, like everybody has to give X amount of money, but rather that all disciples would be making a sacrificial gift as a response to the relationship with God. And so he actually values the sacrifice more than he does the money. This is important, right? This is why, I don't like talking about money, but I think it's important because the Lord thinks it's important for us to be sacrificial persons. So certainly with our finances, but also with our time, with our abilities and gifts, all for the service of the mission of Jesus Christ. And so the idea here is that even when we may not have a dependable income or much to give, a sacrificial gift is still the goal of discipleship. So for one of you, that may be $3.50 a month. In fact, one of our students is giving $3.50 a month. That's their widow's mite. It may be that if you have a greater source of income and wealth, that might be $500 a month. We have givers who give $500 a month. The students should feel comfortable, too, talking with our parents to ask them to consider a portion of their tithe to something like Our Lady of Wisdom. Because you come here, we support you in your growth, in your sacraments. We want to support that mission to the student, staff, and faculty here at Texas State. And so their support of your sacraments while you're away in college brings a shared experience and greater understanding of your faith journey. It's a great opportunity for them to ask you, hey, what are you getting out of church, right? And you can even have the conversation with them and share your church experience with your family. Now, all of that paints the picture. What does that look like over the course of a year? Because we constantly get these, what's coming up this week, and we don't kind of know what's going to happen. Well, we want to paint the picture for the entire year for Our Lady of Wisdom so you can intentionally discern your bigger picture. And so the backbone for Our Lady of Wisdom is our monthly mission support, the Bobcat Catholic Legacy. So we use an offertory system typically, and of course right now we don't pass the basket at all due to COVID, but our gifts become an expressive act of sacrificial love offered with the bread and wine that is united to the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. There's a reason why that offering takes place within the Mass at the same time that bread and wine is typically brought forward. All of that is a symbolic of the offering of sacrifice that we're bringing now before God. And united then to the sacrifice of Jesus Christ at the altar of God, God brings his power to that, and he transforms it into something that is super abundant, that goes beyond what is offered, that takes what is offered and multiplies it in abundance for all to partake of this mystery of God. And so there's a symbolism there of that sacrificial gift offered weekly. Now, without the offertory basket, or the preferred way of doing this is weekly or monthly e-giving, online giving. It elicits an intentional discernment in giving and a consistency of commitment, which becomes a backbone for our ministry here at Our Lady of Wisdom. And it's very easy to sign up. We have the website, txstatecatholic.org/BCL. You can also do it on Venmo at OLOTXState. There's also the annual appeal. This is the other most important form of giving for us, which is a yearly gift to Our Lady of Wisdom. And it needs to be a successful endeavor for us to exceed our annual budget and helps us to tackle specific projects the parish needs. We follow up with fall and spring newsletters full of updates. The idea is that the monthly giving would support our monthly costs, but there's often costs that come in addition. So, for example, if our AC goes out, there's $17,000 we need to replace it, which we've done 3 times, and we have one more that's probably going to go out at some time. Or if we need to do things like better landscaping or various projects that come up, like when we had all of the updates to our lounge. Now, that was part of the damages that took place from next door. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. Or if we want to make improvements at some point for the building or for parking and these sorts of things, that's where those resources come from, or the addition of even new staff members for the service of the mission. We also have Aspire Conference every year. You can find out more about that. That's a conference weekend. This year it's going to be Matt and Cameron Fradd, some big-name speakers for Pints with Aquinas and Among the Lilies. And we share a meal with those benefactors, and that's another opportunity to give. There's also the Matching Gift Week in the fall. There's an Impact Week in the spring. This is a way to maximize our gifts. We try to find people who will match the giving to double your gift during those times. That's a great incentive for giving. And then there's also planned giving, maybe even at the end of your life, to consider a gift in your will to Our Lady of Wisdom to support the mission as well. And then there's a number of secondary sort of causes that come in second collections, and we have a list of those on that page for you as well. So, my hope is to situate what's happening today in the Catholic Services Appeal within the greater purpose of being a sacrificial giver, a discipleship giver to the Lord. And so as you fill this out today and place it on the table in the back in that box that's there where the sanitation station is, it's also a donation station, you can take that filled out form and you can put it in there. Or if you'd like, you can put a stamp on it and mail it to the diocese as well. We do appreciate the contribution. I hope this makes a bit more sense for you in the bigger picture of things that you can plan for the entire year, and also to consider how the Lord is asking you to respond in that relationship to Him in your financial giving. But not only that, please, not only that, but also in how you are committed to the mission of Jesus Christ in your daily life and in various ministries. Thank you, and we're going to continue now with the Mass. Please stand.